Beginning as early as the 17th century, European armies incorporated African bandsmen into elite regiments. In the year 1685, a man of African origin known as Ludwig Besemen achieved the rank of first-class drummer within the military forces of the great Elector Friedrich Wilhelm of Brandenburg, Prussia. Subsequent Prussian rulers upheld this practice throughout the 18th century. King Friedrich I maintained a contingent of 15 African pipers in his life guards. During the reign of Friedrich Wilhelm I, 16 African musicians served within his artillery units. Under Frederick the Great, King Friedrich II, the number of African musicians in the Prussian artillery effectively doubled. By 1759, there were 32 individuals fulfilling these musical roles. Several other German states also featured African musicians within their armed forces during that era. Even Hessian mercenary armies, engaged alongside the British during the American War of Independence, recruited formerly enslaved Afro-Americans, primarily as bandsmen, though sometimes as soldiers. Records note the presence of an African drummer in the Oldenburg Grenadiers during the Napoleonic Wars. Moving into the Imperial era, a small number of Africans continued to serve, predominantly as musicians within the Imperial German Army. Their presence stood in contrast to the millions of Germans who served, many due to conscription laws which were not applied to African subjects residing in German colonies. Outside of direct military enlistment, other Africans lived in Germany, often brought by members of royalty or the upper classes to serve as household staff or entertainers. A notable event occurred in 1896 when 100 individuals were brought from German African colonies to participate in the Colonial exhibition held in Berlin. Following the exhibition, some of these men chose to remain in Germany. They established lives, married German women, and eventually became naturalized German subjects. These individuals often developed a sense of loyalty towards their adopted nation. Consequently, several are documented as having served in the Imperial Army during the First World War, seeing action on the Western Front, the Eastern Front, and even in the Palestinian theater. One specific example is Joseph Mambo. Born in Tanga, East Africa, around 1885, he was brought to Germany as a child in 1897. He later enlisted and served as the kettle drummer in the prestigious 3rd Prussian Horse Grenadiers, known formally as Grenadier Regiment zu Freiherr von Derflinger, Nr. 3. As events unfolded during the First World War, Mambo received promotions, rising through the ranks to sergeant. His service involved combat exposure. He sustained wounds on 2 separate occasions, once fighting in Russia and later during the intense battles at Verdun. While the German colonial troops, the Schutztruppen, utilized many African soldiers within the African theaters of war, deploying these forces to Europe was never planned and faced significant logistical impossibilities during the global conflict. The number of black soldiers enlisted directly into the German Imperial Army in Europe remained exceptionally small, likely fewer than 15 individuals in total, with most assigned to non-combat functions like music. Another significant figure during this period was Gustav Sabak el-Sher, who lived from 1868 to 1934. His heritage was mixed. His father was a Sudanese valet serving Prince Albrecht of Prussia, and his mother was German. Gustav received formal musical training, attending the Imperial Music High School in Charlottenburg. Subsequently, he pursued a military career. He attained the position of music master or Musikmeister, serving with the elite 1st Prussian Grenadiers, formerly titled Grenadier Regiment Kronprinz 1 Ostpreußisches Nr. 1. This regiment held the distinction of being the oldest in the Prussian army. As a music master, his uniform displayed specific insignia indicating his role, including fringed swallows' nests and distinct shoulder straps. The spiked helmet or pickelhaube associated with his particular regiment bore a scroll marking its formation date, 1655. His military decorations included the Prussian General Honor Decoration, the Prussian Wilhelm I Centenary Medal, and the Bavarian Military Merit Cross. He also possessed an unidentified Russian medal and a Prussian Long Service Award issued before 1913. Gustav Sabak el-Sher retired from the army in 1909. Following his military service, he worked as a civilian music conductor. During the 1920s, his conducting work led to several appearances on the radio, a relatively new medium at the time. He and his wife also operated a cafe in Berlin. However, as political tides shifted in Germany, they faced increasing pressure from the emerging Nazi authorities, which ultimately forced the closure of their business. Gustav Sabak-el-Scher died shortly thereafter in 1934. Upon receiving news of his death, the former Kaiser Wilhelm II, then living in exile, sent a personal telegram expressing condolences to Gustav's widow. While individuals like Gustav Sabak-el-Scher achieved prominence as music masters before the Great War, others followed different paths within the Imperial German Army structure. Joseph Mambo, originally from Tanga in German East Africa, represented another facet of African service. Having arrived in Germany in 1897 as a boy, his military career began in a musical capacity. He served as the kettle drummer, a position often held by men of African descent in European elite cavalry regiments, specifically within the 3rd Prussian Horse Grenadiers. However, as the First World War engulfed Europe, Mambo's role seemingly transitioned beyond purely musical duties. Wartime necessities and individual capabilities sometimes altered traditional assignments. During the conflict, historical accounts confirm his promotion through the ranks, eventually attaining the status of sergeant. This progression suggests involvement beyond ceremonial functions. His service record details significant combat exposure. He experienced the harsh realities of the Eastern Front, sustaining wounds while deployed in Russia. Subsequently, Mambo also endured the brutal fighting on the Western Front. He was wounded a second time during the intense and prolonged Battle of Verdun, a testament to his presence in frontline engagements. Mambo's wartime experience, involving promotion through combat and multiple wounds, stands out given the context. Most of the very few Africans serving within the Continental German Army during that period held non-combat roles. The overall number remained exceptionally low, likely fewer than 15 individuals integrated into the vast Imperial Army deployed in Europe. Their service contrasted sharply with the extensive use of African soldiers, the Askari of the Schutztruppen, who fought exclusively within the African theaters of war under German command. Logistical challenges and strategic planning meant that the deployment of colonial Schutztruppen forces to European battlefields was never seriously contemplated nor feasible during the war years. Therefore, the Africans who did serve within the Kaiser's army in Europe, whether as musicians like Sabak-el-Scher initially or soldiers like Mambo who saw combat, represented a unique and seldom documented aspect of German military history during the Imperial and First World War eras. Their loyalty and contributions occurred within a system where conscription, applied widely to German citizens, did not extend to the African subjects of the empire. The tradition of incorporating African musicians stretched back centuries within Prussian military history, laying a foundation, however small, for their presence in the later Imperial German Army. This practice, seen under rulers like Friedrich Wilhelm I and Frederick the Great, persisted into the era of the German Empire, although the numbers remained limited. During this period, the distinction between soldiers serving in the Continental Army within Germany and Europe and those serving in the Colonial Schutztruppen in Africa was significant. While thousands of Askari served Germany in Africa, the individuals of African descent serving within the borders of Germany itself were exceptionally few. Many of the Africans residing in Germany during the late 19th and early 20th centuries had arrived through non-military channels, sometimes as attendants to nobility or participants in events like the 1896 Colonial exhibition in Berlin. Some attendees of that exhibition chose to make Germany their permanent home, integrating into society, marrying locally, and obtaining German citizenship. As tensions escalated towards the First World War, a sense of allegiance to their adopted country motivated several of these naturalized Germans of African origin to enlist. Their service during the Great War is documented across various fronts, including battles in France, Russia, and even the Middle East. The experiences varied. Gustav Sabak-el-Scher represented the pre-war musical tradition, achieving rank and recognition before retiring. Joseph Mambo, initially a kettle drummer, exemplified wartime service that included combat, injury, and promotion on the battlefield. These personal histories provide glimpses into the lives of a tiny minority within the vast machinery of the German military. Their stories are often footnotes in broader historical accounts, reflecting their limited numbers and the scarcity of dedicated records concerning their service in Europe. The post-war era brought different fates for these veterans. Sabak al-Sher, having retired before the war, pursued civilian life, yet ultimately faced persecution under the subsequent Nazi regime due to his heritage. Information regarding Joseph Mambo's life after the First World War is less readily available, typical of the limited documentation surrounding many individuals from this small group. Their service occurred against a backdrop of evolving German colonial ambitions and domestic attitudes towards people of African descent. While some achieved integration and demonstrated loyalty, their experiences were often distinct from the broader German population. The lack of conscription for colonial subjects meant their service in the European army was voluntary, often stemming from personal circumstances or a connection established through prior arrival in Germany. These soldiers and musicians, though few, challenged simple categorizations. They were men of African origin serving within a European imperial power's primary military force, not just its colonial auxiliary troops. Their participation, particularly Mambo's combat role and decorations earned through valor at Verdun and in Russia, complicates overly simplistic narratives about race and military service in Imperial Germany. Yet the extreme rarity of their presence underscores the prevailing norms and logistical realities that kept the vast majority of Germany's African subjects, and specifically its Askari soldiers, confined to the African continent. Tracing these individual threads reveals a complex, often overlooked aspect of German history during a period of intense nationalism, colonialism, and ultimately, global conflict. Their legacy remains embedded in sparse records and personal accounts, offering brief but significant insights.